Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Hey, Connected Life people. Justin here. Abby's not here because we murdered her last night.
Murder.
She's gone now.
If you guys have listened at any level to the Connected Life podcast, you'll recognize those voices. This is Marcus and Brianna Miller.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Mhm. The Millers are here today. And last night, they were part of a group of us murdering people.
It's so true.
Do you want to admit to that?
I can admit to that. Mm-hmm.
For it to be known, not real murder, because I would not do well in jail.
And I would like it to be known that I was never the murderer the entire night.
Actually, but
We
who was
were
the murderer?
bystanders.
Justin Stumble.
To be fair, Justin Stumball was the murderer. We were playing a game of Murder in the Dark, which is much like a game called Mafia. It's where the lights go out, it's dark, and everyone runs around and until a dead body is found, and you try and guess who the murderer was, and you start throwing around livid accusations like Marcus
Hold up.
did.
Here's the thing. I got it right, and Justin's response was, if I get loud and yell at Marcus, maybe they won't think he's right.
Yeah,
So,
it was
I'm
a
like,
heated battle.
I saw him do it, and he's like, "You don't know anything." And I'm like, I don't understand. I saw it happen.
That was a really fun game, though. We
It
had
was wonderful.
eerie music, and it was, yeah.
Yeah, we put on a spooky soundtrack and it turned out all the lights. It was honestly terrifying. It was my first time playing. And for the most part, I was just cowering, trying to stay away from people the whole time, which I realized isn't great for strategy, but
No.
I made it through. Never got murdered.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do, but I had a sweet innocent mother slit my throat, and that was disheartening because I thought she was a sweet woman before that moment.
She
Yeah.
murdered me too.
It all comes out in Murder in the Dark.
Murder in the Dark. Do you know that R, as I don't know if you've heard this before, is the most menacing of sounds, and that's why they call murder and not muck duck. Mm-hmm. That's a true story from Dwight from The Office.
Oh, I was really like, I don't understand.
I don't
Really
know
was like
where
referencing just for
we're
you guys because
going.
Office is like the
Yeah, I feel like I should have caught on to that, but no.
No, not at all. So today I want to talk about something kind of fun on the plate because you guys are currently in the middle of a little bit of something called a transition.
We are.
Yeah, we
Literally
sure
in
are.
the middle. Bree's body is. Oh, that sounds weird. No, silly. Her
Yeah.
body is
Bree's body.
transitioning.
Sentence,
Well,
Marcus.
what I mean by that is we are pregnant, so her body is making a baby.
I'm curious to know where you were originally going with that. But yeah, we're pregnant.
Little bun in the oven, as they say, huh?
Yep, we got a bun in the
Little-
oven.
Little Justin.
Little Justin Miller.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen. Still not gonna name it that. Well, what's cool is that you guys have listened before to them. If you've listened at any for any level of time, you probably heard about It's Not About the Dog, which is when they came in and they talked about their transition and getting a dog and all the triggers that started like exploding for them inside of that. And
Totally.
And you guys were a mess over that dog.
Oh my gosh. I'm a little bit scared about how we're going to handle a baby. I feel like that this dog proved how fragile we are. We don't handle change well.
In the future, we'll probably have you guys on to talk about your transition with the child as
Absolutely.
that gets further down the road in this process. But about 10 months ago, you guys transitioned out of Redding, California, which was to be honest, a kick in my nuts. That was kind of devastating to have you leave, Marcus.
Literally, to make it easier, I kicked him in the nuts.
Literally. Quite literally. No, he didn't literally do that. But when you left, that was a pretty difficult season, but also very celebratory.
Yeah.
And today, something that we want to get into is talking about transition and the journey of change, because a lot of times it's so filled full of nuances, the idea of transition, right? Like it can feel really terrible, the idea of it, or it can feel like the best thing ever. But there's so many experiences to transition that are just simply part of the human experience, and all parts of it should really be embraced.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so going off of what Justin was saying, we moved down to San Diego in January. And since then, we've just had a year of crazy transition with where we're living, transition with relationships, transition in jobs and in working and money in every single area. This has been a whirlwind of a year for us. And it's funny because every time someone asks me about this year, I'm like, oh, it's been so good, but it's been so bad. It has fully been both of those. And I think it's so interesting because most people I know, myself included, have a tendency to either resist change and run from it, keep their lives so small, do anything they can to avoid it, or they idealize change. Every other day, they're like, I'm going to make a move and everything will be different. I'm going to change my job and everything will be great. Like they can have this idea of change will fix something or change will destroy me. And we have experienced that a lot this year, and we've embraced our fears about change and about being out of control and not having the answers. And we've also faced the disappointment for places where we idealized it and thought it would fix everything in our lives. So really, we just wanted to dive into like the humanity of change, what this looks like what does it actually look like to navigate change and to do it in a way that's not gonna destroy you.
Isn't it interesting how the idea in what you were talking about is it was both portions of both the celebratory goodness or the destruction is all about something outside of us.
Yeah.
Like the idea is that people believe that our world outside of us has the ability to either make or break our lives. And that's such a very powerless way to live. Now, that's not to say that externals don't affect us, but a lot of times people are either like you said, they're terrified that something will happen to me and change will happen and everything will fall apart, or that I can make this whole change happen outside of me and then I'll be super happy, which I've had those friends.
A big thing. Oh, sorry. In the middle of talking, something got stuck in my throat. A big thing that transition will always do is reveal what has been lying dormant on the inside.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Everything that's in there, transition and change will just heighten and bring to the forefront. So I feel like even what I realized when we moved was, oh, I have all these insecurities. I have these places where I am performing, all these places that had kind of settled in an easy season when it was time for us to move. But it felt like the right season. We felt like things were changing. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, am I a crazy person? Like I thought I was normal, but maybe I'm just crazy. But because transition has a way of bringing to the forefront the insecurities that have been lying dormant in a season that's been really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I was thinking about my childhood. One of the things that I was terrified of was getting stuck. Because growing up in a small town, it felt like the mindset and the culture was strongly resistant to any type of change. And so it felt like I watched people never grow, never develop. Now, this is a generalization, and probably some of my friends that I grew up with listen to this, and they may identify with some of it and even feel offended a little bit by some of it. But what it felt like I observed in my small town is all these people were born here. They have a mindset about how they're going to do life. They haven't changed since they were about 15, 16, 17 years old, since their teenage years. They're just a little bit older, maybe have a little bit more burdens on their shoulders. And so for me, I was really terrified of not changing.
Yeah.
I was terrified of getting trapped. I thought that if I stay here, I will always be the same person. And it looked like everyone was miserable who stayed the same. Mm-hmm. And so for me, there was something inside of me early on where I was like, and I understand why people want that, because there's something that seems comforting to never have change. I know how the rules work to a situation. Like, this is my life I've set up. Everything's in a very well-placed order that's not going to be interrupted. And I can control that. I don't have to be surprised. I don't have to feel like I'm going to be in a situation where I don't know what to do about it. And so a lot of people are really happy to stay the same. But what I've observed is when we don't embrace change, we actually have like this fear monster that's really sitting, keeping us, telling us like, you're not going to be enough. You're not going to be provided for. You're not going to be taken care of. You're going to lose everything. Why don't you guys talk into that? Like, is there about the fears of change? Have you guys had that inside of your world?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I am someone who likes to cling to the familiar. I love my routine. I love structure. I love having all the answers. And change by nature takes all of that away. And it's funny because I mean, with this move, we both geared up for it. But in general, like, I am somebody who will avoid it because I like to feel secure and I like to feel like I'm winning at life. Like, I know I can check all my boxes and I know I did what I needed to do. And with change, you literally take away your whole checklist. You take away everything that feels familiar and you have to like scrap it and figure out what to do. And so it's interesting where I can look back at my life and see so many places where I've stayed small because the fear of change felt too big. Mm-hmm. And so instead I let myself live in comfort, but almost in a way where it paralyzed me. And I think that's what you're getting into. Like, there's nothing wrong with comfort or with having routines, but it's like when it is actually keeping you small. I think that our souls need a healthy level of tension. Yeah. Sometimes we need the friction or the pain of change to cause us to grow. And that's something that I've actually had to learn to embrace and learn to be okay with. And I think that like, every time something comes up that's bigger than ourselves or that requires us to figure out our new normals, it's an invitation into trust. It's an invitation into embracing something bigger than us, trusting that we'll get the answers, we'll be okay. And that's really scary for a lot of people. It's scary for me. And I see people either resisting it or running from it, obsessing over it. Like, they have all the different reactions, but yeah, Marcus is opposite, and I'm thankful that he's pulled me out of it.
More opposite.
Yeah, but it's a challenge.
I want to add this before you jump in there, Marcus. You were talking about people realizing like you need something that you can trust and feeling like, I don't trust that I'm going to be taken care of. All these emotions start coming up with it. And that's exactly what you're saying earlier, Marcus, is like, when we're on the precipice of transition and change, that's all of a sudden when with the things that are going on inside of us start to get revealed. And that's the gift of transition, is it says, hey, I'm actually here to throw your life forward. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm not here to punish you.
Yeah.
I'm not here to steal something from you. I'm here to liberate you from the weighty, heavy things that are inside of you if you'll actually use change and transition as this motivating factor to throw your life forward.
Yeah.
Even if nothing external happens. It could be like my house burns down, right? There was a fire just recently here and my house potentially was going to burn down. And a lot of people locally had their houses lost in the car fire a while ago. That's a huge change. That's a ton of loss. But if you look at it as something was just stolen from me, then you're just always walking with a limp, as opposed to like, I got to grieve this loss. But what's this revealing? And you go, oh, I was scared that I would never come back. I was scared that if I lost everything, my life would be devastated, but it's not. I realized that I can move forward with life, that I'm going to get taken care of. There's something really beautiful about change, even in the worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
That is such a gift for freedom if we want it.
That's so true. And I think I like what you were saying about how change exposes our beliefs. Because for me, if I could just dive into our transition this last year a little bit. So we moved down to beautiful San Diego, which is honestly like a little piece of paradise. And we didn't move anywhere in San Diego. We moved to Coronado, the bougiest, most beautiful part of the city. We were a couple blocks from the beach, living in this tiny little apartment. We can walk to everything. It's the fanciest life I've ever lived before. Sometimes I don't know how I got there. So on the outside, this did not look like a hard change, but I was tormented by it. So to back up a little bit, I left my job about a month before we moved. And then with moving to San Diego, we we're figuring out all the normals, like our new normals in the city. We're exploring. And I'm also trying to figure out, what am I going to do for work? What is this going to look like? And I'm jobless. And this actually was a terrifying change for me, because I have a tendency to get a lot of my value and my worth out of what I'm doing and out of work.
And stability, maybe?
Oh, stability. Yeah. To be able to throw yourself into something every day. Yeah. And it's that checklist. Check off everything on the list and be like, wow, I did good today. I can feel good about myself. I had all of that taken away from me. And I think that's really common in moving, that people will change jobs.
Yeah.
And it's funny to look back on it, because our first month there, I wasn't working at all or doing anything. I was living a couple blocks from the beach in paradise. And every single day I would wake up with this pit of anxiety in my stomach. And I would like walk in circles in our apartment all day being like, what can I do? Can I clean something? What can I do? Can I apply for jobs? What can I do? And it's so funny to look back on this now, like after being there for 9 months, when I'm like, I could have just been on vacation for a month by the beach. Totally. I could have just loved it. I could have gone to the beach every day, could have gotten some books and read them. I could have given in to the season of transition. But because I was so scared of being out of control and so scared of not having my normals and having the answers, I resisted it. I was tormented by anxiety, and I couldn't enjoy a single minute of it until I figured out what I was doing next. And it's funny to me to look at this beautiful change in my life and to see the belief systems it brought up in me. And it did that because my security was taken away. My things that I did to feel good about myself, they were all gone. And so it exposed the beliefs in me that if I don't do enough, I'm not worthy of love. If I don't have the answers, I'm not going to be taken care of. Yeah. If I can't bring something to the table, like Marcus will be disappointed in me. And it was crazy. Like I could look at that and be like, well, this is just a disaster. We should go back to writing. Or I can look at it and be like, oh, I'm in pain right now because all of my safeties were taken away. And this is what I really believe deep down. When you crack it all open, this is what's in there. And it was exposing. It was vulnerable. It was painful. And I'd love to say that was just a month and I was over it, but no. That's been like a lot of our year. I think that change just has this beautiful way, if you'll embrace it, of bringing up the pain inside of you and letting you look at it and deal with it in moments when you feel really vulnerable.
And I think that this is a really timely message, because right now, obviously we're on the back end of the pandemic year, and then like life trying to restart, and then even, a lot of political things that are shaking systems. Systems are being disrupted. People's jobs are being transitioned. People are trying to figure out, what is the next thing I'm going to do if I'm not going to work here? Like, there's so many decisions that people are having to be made. Our whole country has been shaken and shocked with change, transition, families being affected. And so right now, I think that it's like, it would be easy for people to feel super out of control, super scared, super paralyzed about moving forward, especially if their lives have never had to change before in significant ways. And I think that you even talking about that, you being able to be like, actually, if I just settled down in it and began to believe that things were going to be okay, and began to let my heart get what it needed to believe, to trust.
Yeah.
Like, part of it was, I hear you saying, I wasn't trusting through it.
Absolutely. And I wasn't trusting. I was trying to control. And I think like change can be such a beautiful invitation into trust and into faith, really, and seeing like that God can take care of us, or that we're going to be covered in these hard moments. And it sounds beautiful on the surface, but when you actually go through it, it's humbling to see how much you want to choose control over trust. It was exposing for me.
Yeah.
I think often something that came up for me in the change was recognizing where my ideas of what I thought it was going to look like or should look like before we moved down versus what it was, and versus like the invitation from God in it were totally different. And my idea of what I thought it should be was the thing tormenting me.
Yeah.
I reached a point, because I think I mean, for us, it felt very clear, like, oh, okay, this is the next right move. It feels like God's like inviting us on this journey to move to this new place. We were not trying to go to San Diego. If I'm honest, we were like, let's check out Austin. Like there were all these different cities that we were checking out, and San Diego was not on the list. And we visited and ended up being the right space.
Yeah, felt like an invitation from God.
It felt like an invitation, and we were open, like, yeah, we want to go on a trust journey, but it wasn't like our plan or the idea. And so I think I had built up in my head, well, if God's taking me to this place that I have no idea about, probably this big thing's going to happen. My whole life's going to change. I'm going to get a new big promotion, or it's going to be the thing that launches me into my destiny. And so I had been creating this idea of what it was supposed to be, because why else would I move? And we got there, and it was just really normal. We got there, and I was like, oh, I think I'm doing my normal life, except for now I live on an island. And I had
island stuck on an island with your emotions.
And I had to reach the point internally where it was like, okay, if all this is I'm doing my normal life, and I get to live by the beach and enjoy the ocean and enjoy the sun, that's okay.
Yeah. And did it feel like he reached that faster than you?
Feels like we both went on a process this year. Like, I think for Marcus and for me in some ways, there's been some like navigating disappointment because we had an unrealistic or inhuman view of what change would be. Like, the truth is, when you take away your normals, no matter how you view change, you'll be triggered. Like, you're in new situations, and that invites triggers and invites pain to come up. And we very much so saw a change in an idealistic way where we were like, oh, we're going to move down there, and then Marcus's business is going to triple in size, and I'm going to have more creative ideas for my projects than I've ever had before. We're going to make the best friends and be the stars of this and this. Like, you just idealize it, you know? And so I think that
I even think I did it with I did it with what our life would look like and how I would be. So I think I was like, oh, I'm going to get there, and maybe I'll feel sad for a month that everything changed, but I'll get over it really fast. Like, I started having an idea of both externally what it should look like and my rules of how I internally should feel about it.
Yeah.
Instead of like, one time I was walking the beach talking to God, I was like, oh, do you have anything to say? And he was like, Marcus, who in the Bible changed their whole life and was over in a month? And I was like, oh, that's no one in the Bible. Like, Abraham is like still walking it out when he's like, he left everything he knows, and it was really hard. And I realized, oh, I'm expecting myself to perfectly navigate my whole life changing. And my expectations on myself are causing me all this torment that God didn't even like tell me it should be like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so for me, I faced the pain of being out of control and not having answers and the fear of change. But for Marcus, he's had to walk through the disappointment of having something idealized in his head that he thought would like boost him forward or do all these things, and realizing, oh no, I'm actually still human in this, and it's messy and vulnerable, and we haven't had all the answers. And so I think both of us have had to navigate just the humanity of change, and when we both saw it in very different lights, and we've had to walk that out this year.
If anything, it felt maybe like not that we weren't going backwards in life, but it felt like an internal, did I just move backwards? Because it does expose all of your insecurities. So I was like, oh, I haven't felt like this in friendship in a long time, where I'll like leave a hangout and be like, what do they think about me? Did I say something weird? And I'm like, who is this person that is like afraid of what everyone's thinking? And I just realized, everything changed. And the part of me that is scared if they're going to be
feeling very exposed
has shown up. And so it almost felt like all the things I thought I should be doing were like, this is not even like on the table. I'm just trying to figure out how to be a person.
Yeah.
That is so funny. When we're moving towards some big change, we have to assign oftentimes purpose to it and what it's going to look like to make us feel comfortable going into it.
Totally.
That's our buy-in.
Yeah, I think it's the comfort. The purpose feels like the comfort, because I always think it's easy. You know what you're leaving, but you don't know what you're saying yes to.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to grieve. Like, this was so wonderful. I had these great friends in Reading, and I had this great life. Like, I know what I'm leaving, but I don't know what I'm buying into, really. And so I think the comfort is you create an idea. It's going to be this, and that is the comfort pool. But then it's disappointing when you get
short.
there.
Yeah, it's short-lived comfort. And it actually, like you said, became your tormentor.
Yes.
this concept of utilizing that type of comfort to get through it, because then it became the expectations that weren't fulfilled, the disappointments that kick in, the abrasively connecting to reality.
Yeah.
Because there's also even a hard shaking that happens for you when reality starts to set in, instead of like not creating a false reality in the first place to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So it amplifies the pain of change. Actually, dreaming in these like fantastical ways can really be more destructive to a transition than just facing the fear of like, I don't know what it's going to be, and I'm just going to be out of control and see what happens. And I'll say this. Our friend Paul Young, who's been on here before, the author of The Shack, he coined the term future tripping, right? And the idea is not future tripping, like not taking a trip into our future, because we're not guaranteed a future as it is. So oftentimes, whatever future we're putting ourselves into, it's a fantasy. It's an illusion. It isn't here. And there's not grace for that. He talks about the idea that there's only enough grace for today. There's not enough grace for tomorrow. And the idea is that if I'm living in this fantasy world of what tomorrow could be, I don't have answers for the problems that I create in my head about that. Even if those answers do come to pass, I don't have the answers now. And oftentimes the problems that I think I'm going to have, or the victories I think I'm going to have, they don't pan out that way ever. And we just don't actually have grace to even be sitting and thinking about that, really. Because there's not going to be solutions right in front of you for that. So oftentimes it's like learning how to be present with the situation is where the grace meets us. And that means like, hey, when I am present here in this moment, just being like, I don't know, today we're packing up our house. I'm not going to think about what it's going to be like when I get to San Diego. And all I know is that I need to find a solution to getting these boxes packed up. And I have to call somebody about the home I'm trying to rent down there.
Yeah.
But it takes away all the stress when you're just living in the grace of today, because you're not trying to answer a million questions that aren't in front of you.
And I do think like it's funny that so much of the pain we've walked through this year have been because we've wanted all the answers. And I feel like we've talked a lot about how hard it's been, but it's also been a beautiful year. Like going into a season where we don't have answers and we're out of control has invited so much love into our lives.
How's that?
Like I think one, with relationships, like meeting new people down there, it's vulnerable to make new friends. And I feel like we came in a very vulnerable state with a lot of like messiness and honestly things we could invite people into. And I've been amazed in our 10 months there, like the level of connection, like real connection we've made with people, because we weren't in a strong place this year where we came in and we're like, we're great. Look at us, everyone. We came in a messy place where we could have real like connecting conversations with people and be like, we feel vulnerable. We don't have the answers. We're battling with disappointment. We're battling with fear, and people who we didn't even have histories with were able to like come in and love us and celebrate us. And
which is really cool that your vulnerability created opportunity
for connection,
for that connection.
Absolutely it did. And I feel like one, like with relationships too, even for me, like it opened up so many areas for me to embrace trust with God. And I think there were places where before we moved, I felt so comfortable and so just okay with me managing my life that I didn't even realize how almost autonomous I had gotten. And then we moved and I'm vulnerable, I'm messy, I have needs. And I'm like, oh, my heart had an invitation to grow this year. My heart had an invitation to need a good father, to need connection. And it's funny to be like, oh yeah, it's so scary and it's been so hard. But like because I have grappled with real fears and real pain this year, I have gotten so much real healing and real love. I've had the opportunity to like cram my heart full of love because people have shown up, God has shown up, like just random little winks from God that have like filled me up throughout the year. And so I think too, like we put on all of these idealizations about what change will be, but at the end of the day, even when it's messy, like it is so beautiful and you get so covered there. In those vulnerable moments, there's always an invitation. And
again, that word invitation that we use often in our space, and you keep hitting and highlighting the invitation, that it feels so much more beautiful than the idea of something is being forced upon me. A lot of times people end up hitting transition seasons or change, and they go, this thing's being forced on me. I'm powerless and I'm out of control. It's happening to me. But an invitation sounds like it's just this friendly extension of a hand reaching out to us, saying like, hey, why don't you come on and come join me in this? And that's, if we start viewing transition and change as something that's inviting us into a revealing of who we're made to be, right? Because really what's happening is, as this change is creating an invitation, it's putting its hand out and say, hey, Bree, come join me in this. You go, okay, I'm going to take your hand and I'm going to begin to accept this change that's happening. And then all of a sudden the fears that aren't who you are come to the surface, right? And they start getting torn away. And then all of a sudden who Bree really is, confident, powerful, capable, all kinds of really cool things about you starts getting revealed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think some of what it's done is it's revealed what are the core beliefs I actually have about life.
Yeah.
Like stepping out, it's easy in comfort and in seasons where and it was right for us. Like the truth is, I don't feel like we overstayed the season we're supposed to be in Reading.
Right.
We were here for 8 years, and I actually feel like, no, it was right. And when it was time to change, we felt the transition. And when change was coming, I could feel in my soul, at this point, if we don't say yes to the invitation, it'll be a disservice to my soul. Like I felt like, oh no, the time where we need to engage with healthy tension for our souls to be alive is coming. And so I feel thankful for the season where it was like there were easier parts and we got to have the comfort. Like I don't feel like that was wrong. It just was what it was for the time.
Right.
And then the time changed. And when the time changed and moving to San Diego, what I feel like it did is it really revealed, what do I really believe?
Yeah.
And even like with the triggers and pain coming up, I was like, okay, I feel that pain. I can see it. But what do I believe? Even if that pain is real and the fear is real. And also, what do I believe about God? And what do I believe about myself? And what do I believe about humanity and my worth and my value?
Yeah. What did you discover for you? Like what's some things that you...
I think it really deepened my, it really deepened my belief that, like, it pushed on so much of my performance buttons is what it did. Performance in friendships, performance in, oh, there's this leader that everyone likes. Oh, why do I want to win them over? That's so weird. And it pushed on the place where I'm like, oh, I'm trying to get approval. And so it brought me back to, am I okay with me? If none of these new people choose me, if my job is just a normal job and we're just living here, can I be okay with me?
Yeah.
Is God okay with me if this life change happens and I'm just a normal person? And so it brought up my beliefs around my worth and my value and my significance. And I got to, like, in a shaky place, resettle in my soul. Oh, if this is what it is, that's okay. If I do nothing, God's really proud of me. If I build nothing new, I literally was on, because I've been having some like different things with Brie getting pregnant, and her pregnancy's been rough, so she hasn't been able to work as much, or let's be honest, at all. Since she's been pregnant, it's been pushing my buttons around finances, and I can tell I'm like, man, I really thought I would I would have like increased my finances by this much when I moved out. Like I had this idea, and God was like, Marcus, why do you think it's success if you're making more money right now? Like you decided if in the past 10 months you increase your finance by this number, then it's successful. I'm not judging you like that. And so it's these moments where God's reinstating inside of me, what is his value system? What is truth of my worth? He was like, I'm not thinking if you made an extra $30,000 the past whatever, that would be successful. I'm not judging like that. That's your judgment. And then working through, okay, God, I don't want to judge myself in things that like isn't your lens. What does it look like if I get that judgment off there? What's true? What's true is I'm doing the best I know how. What's true is the season's hard and I'm trying to stay tender. What's true is I said yes to an invitation because I want to be someone who trusts. And it gets back to what is the core truths I believe. And it's almost like it's hammering them in deeper as the like cracks are being exposed.
That's so good. What do you think some of the other core things that have come up for you as far as the new beliefs that have been being developed inside of you, Bree?
Oh man. Yeah. I think for me, it's brought up a lot of performance. But me and Marcus are both performers, so we've had similar experiences. And it's felt like a humbling year of taking away all of my tools to perform and being like, am I still okay with myself? And am I still okay when I don't have all the answers? And I think it's interesting, like how much we want to grasp at our coping mechanisms when we feel out of control. And a big one that like came up in me was using shaming myself to motivate me to do a bunch of things to feel like I was being proactive, getting my act together, finding the answers. And this year I had to like get to this wrestling point with shame where I was like, I will not let shame be my motivator for anything. I will not let shame be the thing that motivates me into doing a bunch of design work or making a bunch of friends or going to church and being really involved, because I had all these ideas in my head of, if I can do these things, I'm gonna figure it out. And I got to this point where like I was processing with God and I realized, oh my gosh, I trust the voice of shame to lead me more than I trust the voice of God to lead me.
It's very powerful
and
to say.
that was a big belief that was exposed in me this year, because I felt like if I don't keep listening to shame to motivate me to do all these things, I'm afraid I'm going to sit in this season forever. I'm afraid I'm never going to get my answers with work. I'm never going to get my answers with friendships. I'm never going to have significance down here. And I don't trust the voice of God to actually come in and lead me out of passion or out of just like positivity. You know, shame doesn't feel positive, but God, like when he speaks, he feels healing. It feels true. Like it speaks to your spirit. And that was such a crazy belief I didn't know was inside of me, but it came up this year when I'm in a place of pain. All of a sudden I'm clinging to this shame to get me out of it. And I think that was a big one, seeing how deep performance went in my spirit and in my soul, and seeing how much I depended on my own ability to get myself out of it. And so I had to learn to just lean into it and lean into the vulnerability of it.
So many people actually drive themselves through shame. So
yeah,
when they do feel out of control, when transition and change happens, they begin to be like, come on, get with this. You got to work harder, do this. And they start telling themselves, you're failing, you're going to fail. They begin to berate themselves, deliberately berate themselves with criticism, judgment, shame, fear. That, you know, like that people go into the inner dialogue of, your life isn't going to work out if you don't figure this out now.
Absolutely.
And really all that does also from a physiological level is it ends up sending us into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn or something like that. Right. And oftentimes it'll blow your cortisol levels through the roof in your body. So your body's all like in survival brain. And you can't even connect and be present with anything anyways.
Yeah.
So you shut down, you don't think logically, you can't get to a place of peace. And it's interesting because when we're able to get present with ourselves, get past our relationship with accusation, right? Because that's what really shame is and all that is. You're accusing yourself of not being enough, and you get out of that and you just get into this place of peace. You settle into that gut space. And our gut actually really knows a lot. And oftentimes one of the biggest problems that we have is not trusting ourselves, right? So one of the reasons that we go into a relationship with shame is that we don't trust ourselves. Whether we don't trust our own wisdom, our own knower in our gut, or we don't trust in our ability to hear an unconditionally loving Father
Totally.
in heaven who's actually present inside of our story and wants to be in partnership with us. We're like, well, even if he is good and he does talk, I might miss it and I might not hear it. And so our anxiety keeps raising even inside of that. Instead of going like, you know what? I'm going to choose to risk at the idea that I do know the right thing down in my gut. And probably my destructive decisions that I've made in my life were never my gut.
Yeah.
They were my relationship with fear. They were my relationship with shame. That's what was motivating me. It's not that I can't trust myself. It's that I can't trust this destructive nature that I've partnered with. And so when change comes up, one of the things that I think is a really beautiful opportunity for us is for not only for the stuff to be revealed, but then actually a breaking of our partnership.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've talked before about our emotional friendships. And our emotional friendships, like I talked about fear personified as a person. We have a friendship with this person named Fear. And this person named Fear is like, hey, if you're just scared enough, if you have enough, if you're close enough to me, then these bad things won't happen in your life. And it's never like you said, you talked about how you like shame was almost like your God, right?
Oh, totally.
And here's your friend named Shame. Like, hey, Shame, how do you feel about this? All right, I'm going to trust you more than I trust the potential of an unconditionally loving creator who wants to be involved in my story and deliberately created me. And so for me, when these seasons come up, I start asking, who are my friendships? And each season, as I get more and more healing and freedom, I keep seeing these friends that are peace and joy and happiness and a sense of confidence and triumph and all these things. I see less and less of these old friends. But when these old friends are coming up, one of my things I do is I'm like, Fear, I'm going to figure out why you're a friend of mine in this area. I'm going to figure out the beliefs that I have that keep you here. And then I'm going to start breaking my friendship with you because I don't want you to be my friend anymore. You're a really crappy friend. You're not helping me. I need peace to be my good friend. And I'm going to need to figure out how to get peace as my friend and trust to be my friend. So I think that that's a really vital thing. I hear you saying like, I was breaking up with Shame. Like I was breaking up with this person named Shame and a person named Performance. And that's really cool that you're changing your relational, emotional relational circuits.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like what you said, that Shame and Performance have been friends, things that I've attached to over the years. And I've had many breakups with them. And it's just like what you said, you slowly start to see them like lessening in your life, but then you jump into something new, something out of control. And often they'll pop up again because when you've partnered with a coping mechanism, when you've attached yourself to it for so many years, it's a thing that takes time to let go of. And so for me, I even had to just embrace self-compassion this year and be like, oh yeah, of course, Shame and Performance are showing up right now. I spent the first 20 years of my life fully living out of Shame and Performance. It's okay that they're popping up right now. It's okay that my heart still wants to cling to them when I feel really scared and really out of control. Like, I had to practice so much self-compassion instead of being hard on myself and being like, I can't believe shame is coming up again. I can't believe you're turning to it again. It more just felt like another layer of healing and another layer of even building trust with myself, seeing I don't need this to get me through this season. And that's a big thing for me. I was intentionally laying down shame and seeing I'm still going to be taken care of even when I don't operate out of this tool that's felt like it's kept me safe in the past. I'm still going to be okay without it.
What's really happening is there's this revealing of unconditional love that is progressive throughout our human journey. Totally. And so a lot of times we can judge our humanity, but our humanity has been disconnected from unconditional love. And in our process of growing in our humanity, our journey, it's that reconnection thing that's happening. It's the revealing of unconditional love that is really the gift to planet Earth, is that there's a revealing of unconditional love that's taking place. And so like you said, hearing this, you could either judge yourself and further the shame. You could have more shame about having shame in Performance, or you get to connect in with this friendship with compassion. And you get to look at it and go, actually, I'm gonna dig deeper into a portion, an expression of unconditional love, because compassion is part of an expression of love. And you start digging into that and going like, no, I want to be deeper friends with compassion on this, and I'm going to grow towards love. And the more we grow in that, the more confidence we have, the more peace we have, because what's really happening, the invitation to all of humanity is to settle into the idea that there's a really good Father that's involved inside of our story, and we are not orphans.
Yeah, I felt similar, like the idea of like how I said earlier, like it's hammering in the beliefs
Yeah.
that I'm actually like, no, what do I want to believe?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what the season's done in terms of like, do I believe that love will do what it says it does? Like, if it's true that God, it says, if you remain in me and my love remains in you, you will produce good fruit. Then I'm like, okay, if I want good fruit, because really what I'm saying is I want good fruit, but I'm going to try to shame myself into good fruit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do. But if I trust God, he's literally telling me to produce good fruit, remain connected to my love.
Yeah.
And it's the choice over and over again. Like, okay, I am still doing the same routine. Am I going to shame myself, or am I going to connect to the love of God? Because that's going to eventually be the thing that gets me wherever I'm supposed to be. It will produce the best fruit. I always think like, one time God told me, Marcus, the people who trust me the most are the ones who receive love the most. Like, because it actually takes trust to receive love. It is easier when I feel like, oh, I'm failing. I'm going to punish myself. I'm going to judge myself. That is my control. That's me controlling the scenario versus, okay, I think I'm failing. God, will you come and love me in this moment? That takes trust. I am trusting that somehow love is actually so powerful that if I connect into this being that you are, this thing you created, it will get me where I need to go. It'll get me to the freedom I want to have. It'll get me to the life I want to live. And it is all about me letting go of my system to tap into and connect to who he is.
Isn't it interesting that all of it really is an invitation to childlike wonder?
Yeah.
So really, the most powerful posture that we can position ourselves in when it comes to change is this idea of, Jesus talks about that you won't enter into the kingdom unless you become like these little kids. And kingdom is a state of being, a state of mind, first and foremost, a state of like relationship. So kingdom is a sense of God being made manifest through, how do I put that? It's kind of like all of my sensors inside of my being are at this place of peace and trust and not this heavy concern. When you think about kids and their childlike wonder, they're sitting there going, I just playing today and asking questions. I'm not thinking about whether or not I'm going to be fed or taken care of. Like kids in a nurturing home where their parents are present and involved, just kind of are going about their day. They're experiencing everything in front of themselves. And there's this joy about them before like life interrupts them and tells them like everything good is going to be stolen from you and you're going to be punished and terrible things are going to happen. But a kid's just like, I don't know, I'll just find and follow my dad. If my dad's like, hey kiddo, come follow me, the kid's like, okay, sure, whatever. And there's this beautiful sense of trust in those type of nurturing homes. And so inside of this, a part of the invitation that we're talking about is this invitation back into this childlike wonder that begins to actually produce this sense of kingdom where we experience this sense of joy, this sense of happiness, a sense of peace, regardless of the situation that we're in. A kid in all of its purity, when they haven't, again, been interrupted by destructive situations, if the parents are like, all right, we're going to leave, the playground now and we're going to go do this thing, kids are like, okay, let's go. And they just kind of like follow along, not worried about if they're going to get back to that playground again. Like kids actually just believe like life is going to keep happening and fun things are going to keep happening. And so that's part of my hope for people as they're listening to your guys' dialogue, is that something inside of them begins to trigger in a good way, in the sense of they start thinking about the idea of like, what would it be like if I was a kid who grew up in a home where I was always nurtured and taken care of, regardless of whether or not our family was poor or rich or moving or whatever, or it's living in the same house. Like, what would it be like if I started living like that type of a kid?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I do think that like every time we go through something new, something challenging, something bigger than ourselves, it is it is an experience that can bring us closer to trust and closer to that childlike wonder you're talking about. Where I think like this year of transition has brought up a lot of harmful beliefs in both me and Marcus. And we've had the opportunity to process through that, to bring it back to God, to learn trust apart from it. And I think like, man, we're set up just that much better for our next big change. And the next one, I'm sure, will bring up mess too, but I bet it will be just that much more trusting and that much more childlike. And I think life is really a whole series of changes you choose, changes that happen to you against your will. But every one, like, you get to process through it, and you get to learn trust and safety with yourself, safety with God, and hopefully learn more and more of that childlike wonder with each one.
I think that even in a lot of Abby and I's situations where I was sick, she was sick, and things were being ripped out of me in the process, and there's that invitation to face all that stuff, I kept slowly getting to the point where when things have come up, I've been able to go, all right, Dad, this is very interesting. What do you want to do in this? What are you up to? Because as it's gone on, more and more, my accusation that he's not a good dad has been disappearing completely.
Yeah.
To the point of where I'm like, oh, you're a really good dad. So what are you up to?
Yeah. It's kind of how I feel like, and this is why we want to talk about this, is actually, I don't care who you are. Changes and transition is part of the human experience.
Yeah.
You can fight it if you want. Like, people fight it for sure. But this is something every human will go through. Seasons change, life changes, jobs change, family changes, kids, like, it doesn't matter who you are. This is part of the human experience. And if you can pick up the gifts in each season change and you can approach it differently, it's kind of, I think, like I always think that season change, like, God literally created a physical example of what life is like, where it's like there's summer, fall, winter, spring. And it's literally how nature itself is telling you.
Goes through life and death
change
process.
happens. And there are gifts in each season. And you can fight it. You can wear shorts in winter, but you're probably going to get sick. Or you can embrace what it is and get the comfort of...
Get all cozy.
Yeah. Like actually every season has something to offer you if you will embrace it.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's a really big deal. What would you give? Like, I know that we're getting close to an end here. What is some advice that you'd give people that are in the middle of change? Like a couple gold nuggets that you feel like are the keys that you've walked away with.
Expect your dysfunctions to come up. It's okay if they do. Don't be hard on yourself when you find yourself like going back to your old coping mechanisms or feeling crazier than you have in a while. Like, your heart is out of control, and that's okay. We cling to things when we're out of control. Like, the biggest thing that I would want people to know is that it is okay to be messy and to be human when all your comfort has been taken away and you're trying to grapple with how to get through this. That's so okay.
So really embrace your humanity.
Yeah, embracing your humanity.
This is what it is. It comes with it.
Yeah.
Messiness happens.
I think the best thing you can do for yourself in change, whether it's a change you chose or one that happened to you, is self-compassion, to know this won't last forever. I get to love myself through this season. I get to have compassion on the areas where my pain is coming up, and I'm going to get something out of this. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make it through this. Like, I think that is so important, because we think things are going to go on forever, but yeah, there's just so much permission in it.
Yeah, I like that. Marcus, you got?
I think intentionally looking for what is the gift and invitation in this. What is the belief system that we're being invited to, like, actually look at? What is the place where the whether it's fear for you or anxiety or insecurity or control, what is the thing that's being brought up that's actually an invitation to look at and decide, like, do I like this belief? Like, is this belief serving me? And if not, what do I want in its place? Do I want peace? Do I want love? Do I want hope? Do I want childlike trust? And then intentionally connecting to that. So I think for me, it's been like, oh, these things are coming up. Okay, I see it, and I'm going to connect to love in that place. Because it literally is changing. It's like I'm changing the format about how my soul lives its life. Even like the other day, I like a friend of mine, he's one of the guys I've gotten close to down there. We probably tend to shame a performance when in dysfunctions. And we sat down and I was just like, here's all the places I feel like I'm a failure. And now I'm going to act as if you told me those things and I'm going to tell you what I would say to you. So we were literally just practicing. I'm going to practice what love looks like. If you told me you moved your whole life and you feel like you're failing because you're struggling with your spouse, I would tell you I'm really proud of you. I would tell you I see how hard you're trying. I would tell you that I see how much you love your wife even when you can't meet that need in her. And so we literally just sat down and like, we're going to practice love together over our own hearts because I will rewrite what's true inside of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that I would throw out there, I've talked about this in the past before, but it's the idea of living a lifestyle of expectancy versus expectations.
Yeah.
And when you get out of the expectations to me are the defined way that everything is supposed to look, versus expectancy is a hopeful approach to believing that goodness is going to happen for you. Expectancy to me is like, oh yeah, like even if our house did burn down and everything, my expectancy is that the goodness of Papa God is going to be revealed to me inside of my life. My expectancy is that I'm going to learn and grow, that something is going to be revealed in a good way about who I actually am that I haven't been able to see before or cloud about this. But this expectancy is this hopeful posture and a hope in the idea that there is someone bigger than me that's involved inside of my story, and that their number one goal is to continue to reveal themselves to me more than I've ever known before. And so to me, that starts like, it just takes the high stakes off of everything. I just go, all right, I know I'm going to do this. I don't know what it's going to look like. And I know that this is the other part of it. When we allow ourselves to embrace change without trying to figure out what it has to look like, an adventurous story gets to be written. Like I started saying, God, I want to be like a pen and paper, and I want you to pick me up and write a story with my life, right? And so that was part of my expectancy journey. Is my expectancy started saying, as I'm letting go of control, you're going to write a story that can be told for ages about the wildness of what happened with my life. And a lot of times when we're unwilling to embrace change, we're resistant to a story being written that's worth retelling for ages to come.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I want my life to be. A cool, fun story that's inspiring, not just to the people here on earth, but might I even say that like in an afterlife space, that people would pull up the book of Justin Stumble and be like, let's read this book of how he engaged the adventures that went his direction, the tragedies, the ups and downs, all of that stuff. So I want that to be a really cool story. And I hope that as people listen to this, they start going, what kind of story is being written with my life? Am I embracing different seasons and change in a way that it's leaving room for miraculous circumstances to happen? Because I think that that's part of this that we haven't really talked about today, but there's so many miraculous things
100%.
that start happening when we embrace change.
Yeah.
I know that in my own life, I have story after story after story. Even Abby and I got in the new house that we remodeled and we've been in now for, I don't know, so many months, 5 months or something we've been living in actually. But it was in my journey of that, I let go of expectations of when or how a house had to come. I had some hopes inside of my soul. And now I have this big miraculous story that when I tell people about this is how I got the house and this is opportunities that happened through it, they're like, how does that even happen to anyone? And they're like, I don't have stories like that. Yeah, because you haven't embraced being out of control.
Yeah.
You haven't embraced childlike wonder moving towards stuff. And you're not bad for that. It's just like the invitation is on the table today to meet the miraculous and to have a lifestyle that's more free than ever before. Not because you're controlling it more than ever before, but you're more out of control in the best of ways than ever before. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any final things you want to say there, Marcus? Bree, before we wrap it?
Nah, you said it all. That was beautiful.
Ah, gee whiz. Gee willikers. Thanks, guys. And I really appreciate that I got to see you guys this weekend and that we got to sit down and spend this time together.
Totally.
Yeah.
I guess I will actually say, here's the thing. Changes, there's hard parts. And there are joyful parts, and all of it is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even though I look at where what it's been like, and I'm like, oh, I can see all the hard parts. Overall, my soul feels like it's filled with life over it. Like, it's not like, oh, this broke me. It's like there was breaking in it, and it made me come more alive.
I like that. That's super cool. Well, hey, how can they contact you if they want to connect with you for consulting, say?
If you want, you can go to my website, marcusmillerconsulting.com, and you can reach out through that. That's a great way.
Yeah, to connect with you guys over that. Anything else that you guys want them to know about you before we go?
No, that's great.
You're like, nah, I'm done. I'm tired. Put more food in my body.
Conversation over.
There's this thing eating me alive internally.
Feed the baby parasite.
That's true. I am very tired.
Well, I really appreciate you guys participating with us today and sharing those parts of your story. And you guys are doing so phenomenal. I love the way that you've been navigating being in San Diego. And I love that you haven't been resistant towards it. You've given into it and let it be a springboard season.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And it was so fun to get a process through all of the ups and downs and the swings of what it's been here today. It feels very real because it's our lives right now, but it's a beautiful mess.
Beautiful mess. That's a great way to put it. All right. Well, hey, everybody out there, it's time to embrace your beautiful mess. Bye now.